The steak on my plate was still bleeding when the folder hit the table. Not slid, not handed, dropped like a verdict. My fiancée, Camille, sat across from me with her champagne glass raised, and for one absurd second, I thought maybe this was some kind of toast. It wasn't. It was the opening move in an ambush I never saw coming at a private dining room in a steakhouse where the tasting menu alone cost more than my father used to make in a week. I'm Derek Manning. I'm 41 years old. I grew up in a 2-bedroom house in Toledo, Ohio, raised by a mother who worked double shifts at a hospital laundry and a father who fixed transmissions until his hands stopped working right. I didn't inherit money. I built a commercial HVAC company from a single-use van and $1,800 in tools when I was 24. 19 years later, that company services contracts across 4 states and pulls in just under $11 million a year. I tell you this not to impress you. I tell you this because it matters for what happened next. Camille and I had been together 3 years, engaged for 9 months. The wedding was set for December at a vineyard outside Napa, and her family had taken over most of the planning, which I didn't mind, because I was busy running a company with 63 employees who depended on me showing up every single day. What I didn't know, what I had no reason to suspect, was that while I was reviewing service contracts and payroll, someone else was reviewing my bank statements. 6 people sat around that dinner table. Camille's older brother, Preston. Her 2 closest friends, Bianca and Sloan. Sloan's husband, a quiet man named Dale, who wouldn't look at me directly all night, and a woman I had never met, seated at the end of the table in a tailored navy blazer, sipping water instead of wine, with a leather folio resting beside her plate like she'd been expecting to use it. Camille smiled at me the way she always did when she wanted something and assumed she already had it. "Derek," she said, "we thought this would be the perfect place to handle something important. Somewhere comfortable, somewhere everyone we love could be part of it." Everyone we love? She had turned my engagement dinner into a courtroom, and she had picked the jury herself. The woman in the navy blazer introduced herself as Renata Cole, a family law attorney representing Camille's interests. She opened a folio with the ease of someone who had done this before, many times, for many nervous grooms who didn't see it coming. Inside was a prenuptial agreement. 14 pages, and before I had even touched my fork, Preston was already nodding along like he'd rehearsed his part, and Bianca was reaching over to squeeze Camille's hand, whispering something like, "You're being so smart about this." Her friends weren't just witnesses. They were a chorus assembled to make refusal feel like the crime. I looked at that folder sitting next to my plate, cream-colored, embossed, waiting. I looked at Camille's face, calm and expectant, like she had already scripted my reaction and was just waiting for me to read my lines. And then I looked at Renata Cole, who was still sipping her water, still watching me with the patient, practiced stillness of a woman who thought she already knew exactly how this night would end. She had no idea what I had done 4 weeks earlier. She had no idea what was already sitting in a safe deposit box downtown, signed, notarized, and completely legal. And she was about to find out because I picked up that folder and I didn't open it. I set the folder back down without opening it, and I stood up. The room went quiet in that particular way. Expensive rooms go quiet. No clinking glasses, no forks, just Renata Cole's water glass frozen halfway to her lips. "I already have counsel," I said, "and I already know what's in your file, because my attorney has known about yours for a month." I picked up my jacket and walked out past the host stand, past the valet, into the cold Toledo night, and I called Marcus Webb, my attorney of 14 years, before I'd even reached my truck. "They did it tonight," I told him. "I figured they would," he said. "Renata Cole's office called mine 3 weeks ago, fishing for information on your holding structure." I told them nothing. That was the part Camille never understood. She thought she was the one holding the surprise. She wasn't. 4 weeks earlier, Marcus had sat me down after a routine contract review and asked one question that changed everything. "Derek, has anyone been asking around about your company?" He'd heard whispers, a records request here, an informal inquiry there, all tracing back to a downtown family law firm. I thought about the business card I'd found on my kitchen counter weeks before, the one I assumed belonged to Preston. It didn't. So I did what any person protecting 19 years of work would do. I legally, properly, with Marcus guiding every step. The company, the properties, the equipment, all of it moved into protections that should have existed years earlier. Nothing hidden, nothing illegal, just finally handled. Camille called 9 times that night. I let everyone go to voicemail. The next morning, Renata Cole called my office directly, her voice measured but tight. Mr. Manning, our review shows some discrepancies in the ownership structure we expected to find. I told her the same thing I'd told Camille. Talk to Marcus Webb. She did, and whatever he told her ended the conversation for good, because neither she nor Camille ever raised the subject again. 3 days later, I called Camille myself. Not because I owed her anything, but because 3 years deserved a real conversation instead of silence. She answered, crying. Why didn't you just talk to me? I asked her. Why the dinner? Why your brother? Your friends? A lawyer I'd never met. She didn't have a real answer. Just that her family thought it would be easier that way, easier to pressure me into signing before I could think. I told her the truth. If she'd come to me privately and asked for fairness, I would have given it to her. What she asked for instead was surrender, dressed up as tradition in front of an audience chosen to make me feel small. The Napa wedding was canceled. I paid my share of the deposits. I mailed back her ring, insured, no note attached, because there was nothing left to say that hadn't already been said. My mother, when I told her, only asked one thing. Did you do right by people, even when they didn't do right by you? I said, yes. She said, that's all that ever mattered. The company is still growing. We're opening a 4th branch next spring. I still show up before 7 most mornings and some evenings. When the shop is empty and quiet, I think about how close I came to signing something without ever knowing what I was really agreeing to. Not just 14 pages of legal language, but a marriage built on management instead of trust. I don't regret protecting what I built. I regret nothing about that night because it told me the truth before December did. And I'd rather know at a steakhouse than find out after the vows.